All right, so I wanted to talk about what's going to be happening now to the ACC, that all of this is going on. The focus is really going to shift. The first thing, though, you can see Arizona State officially announcing their move from Michael Crow, who seems to be very pissed off about this move. We will always have fond memories of the Pac-12. Didn't seem like a great statement. Arizona State, they were kind of, not that they were drug along, but it was like they really didn't have a choice. And Arizona State and Utah kind of, I don't know. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I don't think that they love that they're in the Big 12, but that's basically the only place they could get. How can the Pac-4 remain united and possibly putting together some type of super group of five conference with Boise State, UNLV, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, SMU, UTSA, Rice, Tulane, Memphis, South Florida, Temple, Buffalo, and UConn. Yeah, I mean, they can do whatever they want. I mean, this conference is just not very good, and they're not going to make much money off of a TV deal because it's such a large conference. You'd have to split it up into a bunch of shares. It looks like Oregon State fans, very angry, cowards. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at Oregon and Washington. This whole thing dates back to the SEC already having the best conference in college football, and then on top of that, sniping the two best Big 12 teams. And then in response, the Big 10 cripples the Pac-12 immediately by taking USC. That's where the whole thing started. So you're honestly going to want to blame, Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC for kicking this entire thing off. The ACC giving Wake Forest their annual revenue share, $5 to Wake Forest. But yeah, you can see just some different things. And then I did want to talk about college football expansion, realignment, what's next for the ACC. I'm going to react to this article. The current situation, the ACC is fine. Probably everyone's grouchy and everyone wants to change up the current deal with FSU leading the charge to get out, but the conference has its ducks in a row. The ACC has everyone locked in through 2036 with a brutally expensive penalty for leaving. Even though several schools are looking for legal loopholes at the moment, the conference appears to have everyone locked in. So yeah, I don't think I share the exact opinion on this. I don't think the ACC is fine. To me, it's going to catch up to them at some point where some of these bigger earning schools in the conference, they're just getting so screwed, and you have to wonder with some of the people that FSU is hiring in particular, we know how realignment works. We know it moves fast. You're the ACC. You see all this stuff going on. You even wanted, it's coming out now, the ACC wanted to expand and try and take some Pac-12 schools. Why didn't they get any of those Pac-12 schools? Well, a number of reasons, but the most obvious one is because they have a terrible TV contract, and why would a Pac-12 school go to the ACC when they're locked into that contract through 2036, probably at a significantly diluted value, then possibly joining the Big 12 or the Big 10. It doesn't make any sense. So the ACC, they're seeing it. They want to add more teams. They want to be on the offensive when they really need to be playing defense and trying to keep this conference together. I think you can say it's fine right now because on paper, yes, 2036, that is a massive hill to climb. You have such little leverage. It'd be a lot different if it was 2026, not 2036, 13 years. That is a massive buyout that FSU would have to pay, and they would be joining the SEC or the Big 10. I think FSU and Clemson are just such great fits for the SEC, especially with the Big 10 now at 18 teams, the SEC at 16 teams. Obviously, the SEC is too short. You take Clemson and FSU, you still keep that southern footprint, that regional charm, and you're adding two huge teams to the conference, and then I would say an expansion to 20 after that would be in the cards, but this whole thing is very hard because we don't know the details on this TV deal. You can see best case scenario, the media deal gets reworked, and all the attempts for member schools to look elsewhere don't emerge. FSU's attempts to find a way out fall flat. and the price tag to steal away member schools is too exorbitant for the SEC or Big Ten to mess around. In a best possible scenario, the ACC is proactive and gets even bigger by adding Notre Dame as a full-time member. That seems basically impossible unless they pay Notre Dame a crazy amount more than they're paying all their teams right now. Notre Dame would have much better offers in the Big Ten or the SEC there. I know that's the whole idea of Notre Dame being a member of the ACC in other sports, but I do not see Notre Dame giving up their independent status to join the ACC unless they just go all out to get them. Even then, I can't see it. I think if Notre Dame is going anywhere, they're going to the Big Ten or they're staying independent. Worst case scenario, FSU figures it out, gets really, really mad, and is not going to take it anymore. Someone finds a loophole in the deal. Litigation is successful, and the ACC grant of rights deal isn't as lock solid as it seems. All of a sudden, Florida State is able to escape along with Clemson, UNC, and other key schools. That or somehow the $130 million exit fee suddenly becomes affordable. Yeah, it's just tough because the grant of rights, you got to wonder if they can get 8 schools together to vote to possibly get out of that grant of rights. We don't know if that's actually a thing or not. If it is, could they even cobble up the 8 schools that would, have better options than the ACC current contract? It's really iffy. I mean, I can name several of them right now, but it gets really tough when you're getting to 8 schools. Best guess what will happen. Best guess time considering we're dealing with technical law and economic stuff. Nothing happens because the cost of breaking the deal to get out is so large. FSU is forced to stick around for the foreseeable future. The Big Ten and Big 12 are too busy playing with their new toys to make a push, and the SEC wants to wait a bit. Yeah, we've heard that before, man. Dude, 2 weeks ago, the Big Ten said they wanted to wait and allow their teams to acclimate to the conference. That's not a thing. I mean, if they can get more teams, they're going to do it, especially FSU and Clemson. But I do understand this person saying the ACC, they're still in a good spot because they do have that deal through 2036. Again, best guess, but the ACC reworks a few parts of the deal and finds other revenue options to up the deal past $40 million a year for most of the successful teams, but that won't be good enough. The bigger schools will still throw a fit since it won't come close to what Big Ten and SEC schools will make. Yeah, I mean, for context, Rutgers is going to be making $70 million per year. So, it's one of those things. It's very tough. These teams are obsessed with money, and if you're FSU or Clemson and you see something like that, it gets really bad. And then this was, I believe, Florida State was pitching unequal revenue distribution, and this was one of their PowerPoints. It just shows, this is from 2014 to 2022, so this is a lot of data. And Florida State had up periods, down periods. You can see they're at around 3.1 million viewers per game. Clemson also up there. You've got Miami. I would still think Miami would be a wanted program with the amount of money, but they're kind of just a weird university. And then you have Louisville as well. Louisville, they were horrible at basketball last year, but they do have a good basketball pedigree. How about Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Georgia Tech? Virginia is a team that I have heard is wanted. They are a wanted program. They do have a very good basketball program and extremely good academics. And then, is the SEC really content to stay at 16 teams? This is from an ESPN article. At SEC Media Days last month, the commissioner said that the league is very attentive to what's happening around us. Do I think it's done? He said in July. People will say, well, I get to decide that. Right now, it appears others are going to decide that before we have to make any decision. So, there's a lot of word salad there. It seems like he's saying, other teams are going to add schools, and then we'll add schools after that. To me, that's how I interpret it, at least. Yes, Florida State has been monitoring the events in the Big 12 and Pac-12 closely and understands the realities and dynamics of realignment. Perhaps now it sees the possibility of the Big 10 expanding to 20 schools with room for 2 more. FSU has been exploring all its options over a year, but there are key questions. If the Big Ten is interested, how does FSU figure out paying a $120 million exit fee and come up with a strategy to get out of the grant of rights, which is meant to tie all the ACC schools together until the end of their deal throughout 2036? Florida State may be willing to take the league to court to challenge the grant of rights, but legal battles take time and money, and this is one the ACC will fight since it wants to keep FSU and believes in the strength of the grant of rights document. And how attractive will FSU be to other conferences with those legal questions hovering over them? Well, I mean, they would have to figure out the legal stuff, and then they would join another conference. I don't think them having legal questions affects another conference. It would come after. They would be able to get out of the deal. The other conferences would know that, and that's how that whole situation would work. As for the money, Florida State has hired J.P. Morgan Chase to look at its financials, projecting all the way out to 2043. It has also partnered with a private equity firm to help with the cash flow. If there is no landing spot, Florida State wants to get movement towards an uneven revenue distribution in the ACC that would give them a larger share of the TV revenue pie based on what the school believes it's worth over the contract. So, a lot of legal jargon there, and what I'll say on this is it's a very difficult situation. You've got to wonder, where is Clemson at in all of this? Where is Louisville? Are these other teams possibly looking to get out? I don't know if there's really the motivation after FSU and after Clemson, at least I haven't seen it, from other schools. And then we have this. What does this mean for the Big Ten schedule in 2024? So they're going to have to change some of their schedule, the Big Ten is. They released their schedule model, and it's going to be slightly adjusted, they're saying, but mainly it's going to be kept the same. It's not going to be anything crazy. And then when it comes to the Big Ten possibly going to 20 teams, this is interesting. You can see the two schools that possibly would be wanted. It's not Stanford and Cal. It's not FSU and Clemson. You can see North Carolina and Virginia would be primary targets. Sources told ESPN both are premier public schools and would excite a group of Big Ten presidents and chancellors that still places a premium on cultural fit. FSU would be more of a stretch, and league sources cautioned against an immediate push, but FSU would give the Big Ten a presence in the Southeast, which is very important, of course. So that there's some interesting stuff there about the ACC. We're not going to go too far on that, but North Carolina and Virginia have to like that rumor, when it comes to them possibly going to the Big Ten if the ACC, and maybe that'll motivate them to join Clemson, join FSU in the push. Where does Louisville fit in this entire scenario? Would they be wanted by the SEC as well? Would the SEC think of taking 4 total schools from the ACC? We'll have to monitor this entire situation. Obviously, there's still stuff going on with the Pac-12, but I did want to share that update on the ACC and kind of some legal stuff. FSU, they seem trapped right now. I think the key thing for them is momentum, with other teams also wanting out of this terrible TV deal. And the teams I would look at, North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, FSU, maybe you look at a team like Louisville, Virginia Tech. We'll see if they're wanted by other conferences like the Big Ten. Maybe even the Big 12 comes into play. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.